Hey everybody, in today's video we're gonna take a crack at seeing how we can make some realistically looking swimming pools. So first of all, this is the scene I have right now. So everything has been applied with a single gray material. So now when I render out the scene, more or less this is what I have. So my scene is lit up basically with two lights. The first one is, let me show you. The first one is V-Ray light, a V-Ray dome light with an HDRI image on top of it. In case you don't know how to apply these, check out one of my previous videos where I have that explained. And as an additional light, I've placed a V-Ray sun coming from this side, which should help with emphasizing the shadows. Alright, so as you can see, a very simple scene, nothing in it, so we can just concentrate on the actual pool. Alright, so the pool as it is, it's a very simple pool. You have a shallow water and then you have a deeper part and you have stairs to get out of the pool. Alright, so as you saw here, when I render out, this is what I basically get. So before we dive in any deeper and start to explain stuff, I would like to show you a few images that I got from Google. So I just went over on Google, typed in swimming pools, and I gathered a few reference images. So basically, this is what I'm talking about. As you can see, this swimming pool has rather nice, calm water, which looks like this. Then we have another one. This one is a bit different. I'll tell you what as soon as we start explaining a bit about the water. Then we have this one, which has some small ripples, which is giving it a distinct look. Then we have this, which is underwater, and this one. So all in all, we have quite a bit of different swimming pools. So let's start with explaining how they work. Alright, so I'm gonna unhide this. And at the top, I basically have a single plane. So let's go ahead and make one material that's going to be used for our water. So I'm going to take one of the material editor balls and drop it onto the water, or I can select it and click on Assign Material to Selection. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is for the diffuse. I want to get something like dark, really dark, like black. Let's go ahead and do maybe like 2 or 3. It doesn't have to be pitch black. All right, so first thing, water is reflective, so let's give it some reflection. So something like this, 235 should work. And now this is the important part. You need to turn on frontal reflections in case it was turned off. And by default, this is set at 1.6. So I'm going to click this L here, which is going to unlock this value. I want to set it up at 133. That is the IOR value for water. All right, so before we go down, let's see how our render looks like by just doing this. I'm going to click on render. And as you might notice, we basically get one black piece of texture, not texture, but material, which is quite reflective, which is okay. This is a step in the right way. The next thing is refraction. Like water really is refractive because it lets light through. So I'm going to click on refract. Again, give it really high value, like 242 would work. Click OK. And again, make sure your IOR is set at 133. Because if your reflection and refraction have a different IOR value, you might run into some difficulties later on. So again, let's render and see what this changed. All right, once the render is finished, we can basically now see that this water is see-through. So the other thing we have to click here while we are still here is you have to click this Affect Shadows button. Once you click this, the light is going to go through the water plane and it's going to hit the bottom. So again, I'm going to re-render one more time so you can see the difference. As you can see, now we have that plane, we have the water. Because we checked the Affect Shadows, the light is protruding to the surface and going to the bottom. So now what happens is our pool looks rather shallow. And the other problem is that we basically have difficulties seeing the water. So first of all, you need to understand one thing. These two values, the IORs that we set here for the reflect and the refract, those are the angle of view. So when you're looking at it at an angle, because we have this IOR set at 133, the light is refracting at that certain angle, which is making the water or the pool look shallower than it actually is. So this is something that you can notice the next time you go to the pool. Because you have water in it, the water is making the pool look shallower, even though it could be deeper or very deep. So that's a good thing to understand about water. It makes things look shallower. All right, so the next problem here that we have is that the fact that the water is barely visible. If you didn't know this was a pool, you would probably think it was just a simple hole. Now, the problem here is not in the actual material that we made, but it's actually in physics. Why? If you take a look at these pools that we saw previously, you're going to notice one thing that's constant throughout all of them. They all have a colored background here, or the surface of the pool is colored. I actually downloaded this image because it has a really nice distinguished look, because in this part it's not colored, it's simply just the stone. And you can see, even though it has water on top of it, it's barely visible. You can start seeing the water better once it gets to the bluish part. So that's why people choose to either paint their walls with a blue color or add this like tiling effect. As you can see, even here, you can have that tiled effect happening. This helps with making the pool look more vivid and more interesting and better looking, or one might even say more appealing to us. All right, so let's go ahead and for that make another material that is going to be for our wall. Now let's try and replicate something like this. So these small tiles. I'm going to close this and I'm going to select my water, right click and hide it. And now I'm going to select the bottom of my pool. For it, I'm going to add one material to it. So as you can see, it's green. And now I can either find a texture from Google, or I can use one of 3ds Max's maps, which is the tiles texture right here. So click OK and click on the associated material in viewport. Right away you're going to see some big tiles, which in our case is not ideal because we want them to be smaller, but thankfully we have the option to change that. All we have to do is go deeper into the advanced options, click on this plus, and we have these options. Now here we can control what kind of color all those little tiles are going to be and what kind of color are the seams going to be. So for the color, I'm going to choose something like that blue color we saw, something like maybe like this. And for the texture, for the seams, I'm going to choose white color. and like this, it's okay. Now, what I need to do is I have to increase the count here. I'm going to try with 50 by 50, which kind of looks okay for now. And the other problem is the size of the gaps here, which we can control here. So I'm going to put 0.5, so 0.05. All right, let's render once and see what we have. And as soon as the render is finished, we can see that we are on the right track, although I think I would even make these smaller. So I'm going to hit it at 100 by, whoops, 100 by 100. And another thing that I would change is that if you take a look at these tiles, you're going to notice that we have some change in the color variance. So one of a few of these are darker, some are lighter, etc. So just so we don't get such a uniform look, we can change the color variance here. So we can go here and put it at, let's try 50%. Let's see how that thing is going to look. And then we can even change the fade variance, but for this I'm going to set it at 0.05, which is going to make some of the colors look a bit more faded than the other ones. Alright, so now let's re-render one more time and see what we have here. And from what we can see, now we have that variance in the color, and everything is starting to get the look we wanted to have. Alright, so now I'm going to right click, unhide my... Alright, we unhid the water, and now if we re-render one more time, we can now see that we have the basic calm water type of swimming pool. So we can use our swimming pool like this, but in all honesty, a water pool like this would probably look a bit boring and dull, because if you take a look at this image here, you can see that even though this pool is very, very calm, the water is very calm, the surface is not 100% flat, because you still have a bit of a ripple here. So in general, you want to have your swimming pool looking more in line, something like this. So you have some ripples that are just breaking up the boredom of the water. So let's add those ripples into our scene. So there are a couple of different ways, and all of them basically require you to change the bump value of the water. So for the first type, I would like to show you how you would change this by directly using a map you can get from Google. So what I did is I went to Google, I typed in ripples bump map, and I basically found this map. So this is a normal map. The difference between normal maps and black and white bump maps is that normal maps have their information being applied in 3D, unlike the black and white bump maps, which can only apply the information in 2D. So when you're using some complicated bumps, it's always a good idea if you can find a normal map to use that. So for the first one, I'm gonna go select, let me just get this, all right. I'm going to go down to the maps section, and in the bump map, I'm gonna click on the none. And from here, since we're using V-Ray, I'm gonna scroll down and find V-Ray bump normal. Nope. V-Ray normal map. There we go. And in the normal map, I'm gonna pull in the normal map. Now, if I double click here, you're gonna notice that. Wait a second. I think. Nope. Actually, everything's fine. I thought I applied it to the other material. Alright. So with this normal map applied, if I re-render now, let's see. And what we can see right away is that our water is starting to get some nice looking waves that are breaking up the surface of the water. All right, so now once we have this, we can go a step further in getting a more realistic approach to water. And that is by adding another layer of realism by adding caustics. Now, what is caustics? If you have never used V-Ray caustics, it's basically, let me show you this image. This is going to explain it better. So caustics is this kind of effect. This is what you get when light comes into a certain material, and then inside it reflects a few times, and once it gets out, sometimes it can cross itself and make these kinds of details. So this is called caustics. In water, they usually are represented by ripples like this. So we can use this same technique inside V-Ray. So all we have to do is we have to go into our render production. Oops, wrong one. Click on render setup. And from here, you go into the global illumination and down to caustics. All you have to do is get here and flip it on. As soon as you re-render now, you're gonna get a new render with the caustics in the render as they're gonna be calculated in. But let's see how this thing is gonna look, and then we're gonna explain as soon as we see the final result. And there we go. Since the render is finished, I need to note one thing. Once you turn on caustics, your render times are gonna go up a bit. So you need to calculate this. So if you're gonna use caustics, expect a longer render time. So as you can see now, the light is going through the water and it's giving us a more realistic look. So this is what we can get by using the normal map approach. So let's go ahead and now change the normal map with a custom map that is going to give us a more control over how the ripples look. So again, I'm gonna switch over here. I'm gonna clear the bump map, and now instead of the normal map, I'm gonna go down and I'm going to choose a noise map. All right, so by default, the noise size is 63. I'm going to decrease it down to something like, let's write 30. This is going to look good or not. Let's see. Again, I'm just simply going to go ahead and render one small pass. Well, let's go even smaller so we can get some speed. All right, we can see the difference right away. With just the noise map, we can see that we have some ripples. They're rather large. Just for you, so you guys can see it better, I'm going to re-render the whole pool. It's going to be a second for you. And as you can see, we have some nice large waves throughout the entire swimming pool. Now, what we want to do here is add a few more smaller waves so we can see it better. Now we can do this by decreasing our size over here, or we can mix our noise map with another one. So let's hit on the noise and then hit mix. It's going to ask if you want to replace the map or keep the old map as submap. So we're going to keep it, so click OK. And now I'm just going to copy or just pull it down, make a copy here, and in our second one inside, we're gonna make the size maybe 10, or let's go with 8. And the other thing you want to change here is the phase. Give it a different phase. So this is gonna make the noise appear a bit different in this the smaller part, and it's going to make it distinguishable from the big waves. All right, so once we have both of these, we can just choose how much we want to mix these two. So mix amount of 0 basically leaves you with the original one. Mix amount of 100 will leave you with the second one. So I'm going to mix it up at 50 and see how that is going to translate into our pool. So click render. And as we can see now, we have those smaller ripples coming from the second noise, and we still retain the original ripples, and we're getting something in our pool. Now I can even choose to go higher on this mix amount to make the smaller ones appear more strongly, or I can increase the bump map to 60 and get a more bumpy effect. Let's just try it like this, and let me just go in and hit 70 here. So I want to get a bit more out of the small waves. And here it is. We have our swimming pool looking nice and realistic, and the good thing here is, actually the great thing here is that you have total control over how those ripples are gonna look like. So with this, we can end it here, or I can show you one more trick as to how you can get a rippled effect on your swimming pool. For this last approach, I'm actually going to turn off the bump. So I will not be using a bump map. Instead, I'm going to use a geometry for my pool. So for this, I want to select my water plane, and I'm gonna go Alt Q, so I isolate it like this. And now this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna select both of the edges. I'm going to hit connect. Let's hit 40 and across, and here connect and hit 80. So now we have quite a bit of geometry floating around. So once we have this, I'm going to go ahead and here I'm going to add a noise modifier. Now, noise modifiers work by basically moving your geometry on the X, Y, or Z axis. So for the in this case, I don't want to move it on the X or the Y because they are basically the borders of the water. I just want to use it in the Z. So for this, I'm going to use it and give it like something like this. 16 should work, and I'm going to click on Fractal. This is going to give us a few bits of smaller waves like this, and on top of this one, if I want to get a bit more resolution in here, I can try and put on a Turbosmooth on top of this, make it look like this. And now let me just move this under the UVW map, and on top of the Turbosmooth, I'm going to go over and add one more noise modifier. In this case, I'm going to hit again on the Fractal because I want to retain those small details, but instead of going plus on the Z, I'm going to go negative, so it should give us a bit of a different look. As you can see, something like this. I'm going to end my isolation and go back. All right, so we haven't changed anything else in the material. I've only turned off the bump because the bumpiness now is going to come directly from the geometry. Now, bear in mind though, this kind of rippling would require quite a bit of wind to be blowing outside. So let's see how this thing is going to look once it's rendered. So as you can see in our final render here, even though we have no bump map used here, we still got a nice looking swimming pool with a nice realistic looking waves. So we went over how to make the bumps with the normal maps, then we went over how to make it with a bump map and how to go with geometry. So more or less this should cover the more basics on how to control or how to create a swimming pool and make it look realistic. So I hope you guys had fun watching this video, and if you liked it as much, if you liked watching it as much as I loved and liked making it, then hit that like button, subscribe, comment, and share it around so it can reach more people and hopefully help them learn the things that you learned. So for now, take care, and I'll see you all in the next video.